Andy, my dude, have you heard of the magical website builder known as Squarespace?
Ugh, not another Squarespace ad. I feel like every podcast is sponsored by them.
Hey, don't knock it till you try it. Yes, okay, it is overhyped, but actually it lives up to the hype. Squarespace is like a website fairy godmother. With a click of a button, your site transforms into a beautiful masterpiece.
A website fairy godmother? That sounds interesting. What makes it so magical?
Well, for starters, those slick templates make anyone look like a professional web designer. Pick one, customize the colors and fonts to match your brand, and voila. Plus, the drag-and-drop fluid engine is so easy, your grandma could build a site on Squarespace.
Well, she did knit me a lovely scarf last Christmas. Maybe website design is next.
Exactly. And when you're ready to sell your Nana's handmade scarves online, Squarespace has built-in e-commerce. Add a store with one click. Get flexible payment options. Then watch those sales roll in. And when she wants to teach others her steezy scarf skills, Squarespace's new courses feature is just the ticket. Nana can set up her curriculum and enrollments and payments in a snap and become the next e-knitting influencer.
Oh, wow, you really sold me with the grandma angle. Sign me up for that free trial.
Just go to thenextreel.com/Squarespace and transform your site into a beautiful Squarespace masterpiece.
Well, thanks, Pete. Even though it's overhyped, Squarespace actually sounds perfect for Nana's site's needs. Appreciate the warning on the ads, though. I'll brace myself next time I listen to a podcast.
Anytime. Let me know if you need any help getting that site up and running. Andy, can you believe we've almost hit 700 episodes of The Next Reel?
I know, it's crazy. And with all the other episodes in our family of podcasts, we are well over 1,200 episodes of movie conversation. It's really pretty amazing that we've gotten to have these in-depth movie chats every week for over a decade now.
And we couldn't have done it without our loyal community of film fans. Their support over the years has meant so much.
For sure. That reminds me, we should give the merch store a shout out. Buying shirts from thenextreel.com/merch is a great way listeners can continue to support the show. Plus, they get to sport our great designs.
Absolutely. I think sometimes folks forget we have a variety of shirts, mugs, phone cases, and more available. In fact, a great place to start is with a shirt sporting the Next Reel's logo.
We also have that classic Fast Times Spicoli Surf School tee, or the weirdly popular Rusty's European Tour shirt.
The one from National Lampoon's European Vacation. Why is that so popular?
Search me, but we have sold a ridiculous number of those. I guess there are a lot of Rustys taking trips to Europe?
We're always adding new designs based on movies we've covered, like our brand new design for a streetcar named Desire, featuring a streetcar named Desire. So if you want to rep your love of TNR and films, head to thenextreel.com/merch.
Every purchase helps us continue to have these weekly in-depth conversations. So visit thenextreel.com/merch today.
And as always, thanks for listening and being a part of the Next Reel community. We've got lots more great movie chats coming your way. I'm Pete Wright.
And I'm Andy Nelson.
Welcome to The Next Reel. When the movie ends,
our conversation begins.
In just a matter of seconds, you're going to hear a classic episode of this show from back in the day when we called ourselves Movies We Like.
It took us a while to settle into the show's format, so you'll notice some differences as you listen to these episodes. For instance, it takes us a bit of time to actually get into the conversation about the movie. Things like that.
But we're still proud of the conversations about the movies themselves, and we think they're worth keeping in the library.
So enjoy these episodes from our back catalog. And you can become part of our Discord community, learn more about the show, and find out how you can become a supporting member at thenextreel.com.
So thank you, everybody, for downloading and listening to The Next Reel. We appreciate your time and attention, and we hope you enjoy the show. Andy, it's been one of those days. Do you know those days that are just miserable? But you can't put your finger on why. Or do you know those days? Like, I just woke up. I went on my run, and my knees are hurting. Well, that bums me out. Come home, I hurt my heel. Get back here, I don't know what happened. Like, I sat down at my desk, and I opened up my feed reader to look at the news for the day, and then suddenly it was like 1:30. Like, the whole day is just gone. It was just me messing around on the internet. This is what
Those are
happens.
great days.
The kids go to school, and I lose time. I think I blacked out. And then I came back. I ruined dinner. Had to make that twice. Ended up serving soupy chicken water as an enchilada sauce. Had to fix that. That was a mess.
I hear only the finest restaurants in Gay Paris serve that.
Soupy chicken water.
Yep. Soupy.
So this le soupe de chicken. Oh man. Pool. What's water?
Isn't it ooh?
Ooh. Oh. It's O, not ooh.
I don't know.
It's O.
Oh, dear.
Soupy chicken water. So that's it, man. And then, it's just a thing. Please tell me you've had a better day than I have.
Yeah, I did. It was such a great day.
Really?
No, it was fine.
Are you just showing off now?
I'm just showing off. I'm bragging. I have nothing but perfect days down here, Pete.
That's right. I hear you guys are in another bit of. There's another crazy dude shooting people.
Yeah, it's.
You probably drive that path, right?
I do every day.
Your head
not
down.
Now. Not now.
That's scary, man.
It is. Crazy people who decide to shoot up highways. It is a little freaky. So. Especially when you got the whole family in the car. It's like, this is probably not the best place to be.
Did you get them a helmet? Did you get everybody a helmet?
I should.
You should, but you know what? In the spirit of Sophie's choice, you should only get 2 other helmets.
Jeez.
What? Too far?
Oh, man. You are a dark human being.
This is the kind. This is what I tell you. I opened our conversation tonight telling you where my head is right now, and I think I sort of blame you. What are we even doing this movie? This is a horrible movie. I watched it last night. I haven't seen it in 25 years, and as the movie ends, I know why now. It was horrible then because I was a child. Who let me watch this movie when I was a youth? Why would I do that? It was terrible then, and it's even worse now that I have children. That's where my head is. Can't wait to dig into this one.
Good times. I think with that, we should tell the people where we're from.
Where are we? Oh, wait, we did that backwards.
I did, but I was trying to set you up because it's just such a dark open.
Okay.
Where are we from, Pete?
I'll tell you where we're from, Andy. This is The Next Reel. I'm Pete Wright, and that there is Andy Nelson.
Hey!
And we spoil movies. Tonight on the show, our 4th and final film in our Meryl Streep series with Alan J. Pakula's 1982 film, Sophie's Choice.
Some would say her biggest comedy hit yet.
Before we get into that, you should learn more about us at thenextreel.com. Subscribe on iTunes or follow us on Twitter and Facebook at The Next Reel. And if you've seen Sophie's Choice and you're the kind of person who gets to the end and thinks, yeah, I got this, you should head over to Instagram.com/TheNextReel and play The Next Reel's Instagram hashtag PonyPrize hashtag Guess the Movie Challenge. Andy, how did our expert decision makers do this week?
They did pretty good. I was wondering who would figure this out. I threw a little bit of an easy gimme, I think, in for Image 3. But in the spirit of last week's Austin Powers, The Spy Who Shagged Me, I did yet another fun spy spoof, Our Man Flint from 1966. And Fegfee was able to figure it out on day 3. And it was just, a lot of fun images from a fun spy movie. The best part, I think, is the name of the good guys organization is the Zonal Organization for World Intelligence and Espionage, a.k.a. ZOWI.
I loved it. I've never seen this movie, but I got a major laugh out of, I think it was Image 3, The Adventures of Point 0008.
Right. That's an image 4, yeah.
That's pretty good. But I've never seen it. James Coburn. It sounds like I need to put this on the list.
Our Man Flint and In Like Flint are fun little spy spoofs from the 60s. So definitely fun ones worth checking out if you're into like the James Bond sorts of things. Yeah.
Flushing steel barrels of liquid exotica into the sewer system. Is that what that is?
You'll have to see the movie.
Oh, you're killing me. We have a blot spot update.
Well, yes, we do.
Would you like to read it, or would you like me to?
I think I should, since it involves me.
It really is directed to you. I think that's important. Go ahead.
Andy, I don't know why you naturally assumed I would hate this movie as much as Pete did. Wink. Surprisingly, I found it engaging, particularly because of how well Irons and Streep played the two different parts. The one scene where they were rehearsing showed just how talented Streep is, because you could see her entire demeanor change in an instant when she shifts from actress to role. It's not one I'll likely watch ever again, because it did move very slow, and I couldn't get a proper handle on Sarah's motivation, but I certainly didn't hate it. Your rank 182 out of 200, my rank 125 out of 200.
Right there. That's the bombshell right there.
Yes, I know. So I was surprised by that, Ben, but I'm happily surprised. I'm glad that this was a movie that you did enjoy, despite having a bit of a slow pace to it and everything. I am thrilled that you didn't hate it.
Me too, because sometimes Ben, the blot spot, Ben's role is as a barometer of public appreciation of these movies. That's what Ben is, the person I'm thinking of whenever we do these things now. I wonder if he knows that. He is all right. He is my avatar.
That's right.
And
how did we do this week?
I too am really surprised that there is that we parted on that one in that direction. But I'm glad too. And you know what? This is the winky hate. In that first line, the winky hate. I did not hate this movie. I'm never watching it again because it's boring, but I didn't hate it. If I said I hated The French Lieutenant's Woman, I don't hate. There are movies I hate, but you try to use that sparingly.
Yeah, I don't think you said you hated it, but you certainly said you found it impossibly boring.
Impenetrable, I think, was a word that I used for it. It was impenetrable. Andy, I think it's time for us to do trailers.
Let's do them.
I'm going to go first because you need the setup.
Okay.
Now, you handed me a trailer, which I have turned away because it just doesn't live up to your trailer tonight. And so I picked my own. Mine is called Room. It is a modern-day story about the boundless love between a mother and child. Young Jack knows nothing of the world except for the single room in which he was born and raised. Now, that sounds really sweet, the way they write it. But the trailer gives you this sense that maybe they were, that this is a mother who was somehow kidnapped. She was imprisoned and gave birth to this child who has spent, all of his whole life in this single room. And
like 8 years.
Yeah, 8 years. And so, there are some very sweet clips of him saying good morning to the sink and good morning to the table, etc. It's really adorable. And then to get out, she rolls him up in a rug and smuggles him out. And then is reunited with him when she also escapes. And so he actually gets out and sees the world for the first time and has to become the savior character as an 8-year-old. And it really struck a chord for me as just a clever approach to the Truman Show vibe. And I really enjoyed this trailer. Film comes from director Lenny Abramson. And Lenny Abramson we know because Lenny Abramson's behind Frank. And I don't know, we've never done Frank on the show, but I really, really liked the movie Frank from 2014. I had a great time with it. It's really bizarre. And he also is behind what Richard did in 2012, which I did not see, but I hear I've heard some pretty good things about that too. So, film stars Brie Larson, Joan Allen, William H. Macy, like all those guys. And what I hear, this Jacob Tremblay fellow as the young boy is somebody we're going to be talking about in the future.
Yeah, he looks great. The story looks really, really strong, haunting. It looks like a story that in a different angle, it could very much be kind of a suspense thriller. But the angle that they're taking, it looks really interesting. More just kind of the post dealing with everything after this escape and after this world that they've been stuck in for so long, and now really kind of enjoying and learning about the real world. And it looks really touching. It definitely looks like there's still some elements in it that look dark, like dealing with finding the guy who had kidnapped them getting arrested and stuff like that. But for the most part, it looks like a really strong, haunting, touching character piece. And I'm excited for it, man.
You know what I think looks really good is that, I think they really did, and I hope so. I'm going to put this on the record. It looks to me like a very well-balanced trailer that doesn't give me too much of a sense that this is a super dark thriller a la Prisoners, or that this is a light kind of meeting the world comedy, like, kind of a more of a sensitive take on the Truman Show. It really does look balanced to me, and it makes me feel like I know what I'm getting, even though I don't know how it's going to unfold. And I really I think they did a good job with the trailer. It's a nice trailer.
I agree.
It's October 16th, 2015, so just next month. Mark your calendars. There you go.
Fantastic.
All right, bring the holiday cheer.
Well, mine is a merry little Christmas film that I think looks really fascinating. And
is that the word, fascinating, that you want?
It is the word. It is the word. Fascinating and frightening. It's called Krampus, and it's labeled as a comedy fantasy horror. And I've never heard of this Krampus Christmas demon that apparently is like making waves in the film world right now, because there are many movies about Krampus that have come out recently or are coming out.
2013, look at this, Krampus the Christmas Devil.
Exactly. There was a short in 2012. There's another short this year. There's another The Krampus in development. There is
Krampus Beware the Krampus in 2016.
Yeah. And there's also Happy Krampus that's in development. Not to mention the other trailer that I was that I wanted you to do, which was what was it called? A Christmas Horror Story?
Yeah, another Krampus story.
In which Santa battles the Krampus.
And the elves turn to zombies.
So he is the thing right now. Everybody has latched onto this great new horror icon, and all of a sudden it's going to turn into a thing, and there's going to be Krampus everywhere.
You watch Halloween, it's going to be a Krampus. That's going to be the big thing.
Yep.
This Halloween, you're going to be Krampus.
That's what I'm going to be. So anyway, Krampus is like this big Christmas demon that basically, if you, I don't know if you just piss Santa off, or if you basically have no Christmas spirit, then Krampus might come and visit you and basically destroy everything. And it looks pretty terrifying, but it looks like it's got a strong cast, a really interesting kind of horror angle with some of that comedy vibe. Adam Scott is in it, Toni Collette is in it, and who else was in it? Alison Tolman, David Koechner, and it's got a great bunch of faces facing off with this funky, hooved, ginormous Christmas demon thing. And I think it just looks fun and creepy, and I really kind of can't wait to see it.
I'll tell you what makes me most curious about this. Is that Michael Dougherty? This is a Michael Dougherty film, and
that is right. I forgot to mention that
he is behind. He was on the writing team with Dan Harris and David Hayter behind X-Men 2 in 2003, which I really, really liked in terms of the X-Men series. I was a big fan of that. He is also behind. He's back on X-Men. With X-Men Apocalypse coming out in 2016, and he did Superman Returns, and I think a lot of people didn't like that one, but I really did, and so he's definitely he's a Bryan Singer guy over Legendary, and so I think he just has a really interesting sensibility. He also has some other horror films under his that I'm sure you have
that's
seen
that's what I forgot to mention. Trick or Treat is a fantastically fun Halloween horror anthology, and it's just great fun. And he's actually has announced that he's going to do a Trick or Treat 2, which thrills me to no end, because I really enjoyed Trick or Treat and feel more people need to see that gem.
Why was it so good? Anna Paquin.
Yeah, it's a really fun, I love horror anthologies, first of all, but having them all focusing on Halloween with these different angles. It was a fun take on the horror anthology, having them all focused on Halloween and doing really just fun little short stories with it. I had a blast.
Awesome.
And I think they came up with a really fascinating little I don't know if it's like what I'd call it, but like the little demon creature that's kind of on all the marketing for that was a really fascinating new kind of horror character, and I'd love to see that character kind of evolved as as any other franchise does.
Well, I'm sure you'll have it.
And this is coming out December 4th.
Andy.
Yes?
I need you like a biliary calculus, pellagra encephalitis, Bright's disease, for Christ's sake, carcinoma of the brain. I need you like death. Do you hear me? Like death. Back to Krakow, baby.
There are secrets beyond imagination. There are memories time cannot erase. It was a season of delight in a place called Brooklyn. The season of Sophie and Nathan, and a young man called Stingo.
I love that piece.
Look at this, God's gift. Give me a kiss. One kiss.
Salami, you know that song, right?
All summer long they were together, drawing ever closer to the mystery of Sophie. Ever closer to her unthinkable secret. Sophie.
Oh, please don't go! Don't go away from me, please!
When I told you that the only thing I absolutely demand of you, the only single thing, is fidelity?
Sophie, why'd you lie to me?
Oh, the truth. The truth. I don't even know what is the truth. After all these lies I have told.
Tell me why.
There are so many things you don't understand. So many things that I can't tell you.
Explanation, please! Explain! So beautiful. How'd you get to be so beautiful?
Sophie. How can anyone imagine that he knows her? Beyond the innocent, the romantic, the sensual, and the unthinkable, there are secrets we have yet to imagine. One of them is Sophie's choice.
Here we are, Andy. Sophie's Choice. Not the opera. Sophie's Choice.
No.
The 2002 opera. Not the book, the William Styron book. No. No, we're talking about the film Sophie's Choice. The film is from our friend, Alan J. Pakula, our dear friend of the show. Only because we've talked about him before.
That's right.
Written, obviously, by William Styron. It was actually adapted by Pakula himself, who did the screenplay. Stars Meryl Streep, Kevin Kline, and Peter MacNichol. And other people, but nobody really cares about them because these three they really steal it.
Yes. Yes, they do.
How'd you do this time? First of all, when was the last time you saw it?
Last time I saw it, I've seen this film twice before. Once, I think, the first time I think was in college, and then the second time was probably 15 years ago.
Okay. I've seen it only once, and it was in college. I was at home. I watched it with my parents. It was like my sophomore year, sophomore year, sometime like that. Okay. How did you do?
I mean, I remembered a lot about this film. There's a lot that's hard to forget about this film. And there's also things that I remembered of the things that I don't like. A lot of that really stuck with me. There were elements of the film that I definitely appreciated more, and all of the things that I don't like about the film are still there. I can understand why it's all there, but it makes the film for me a a film to watch to enjoy, if that's the right word, and appreciate what Meryl Streep and Kevin Kline are doing here, and the power of that element of the story, in particular the flashbacks. But the other parts of the film just make it something that I end up finding being, I don't want to say a slog, but I do find to be, I just find it a strange story structure, I guess, and it doesn't work for me.
Oh, I'm relieved to hear you say that, and I agree with you. I think this is a movie you see because it is such an exemplar of the craft of acting. That, you know, and that's why it holds up for me. But it's not a tremendous film.
No,
for me, it's not a film that really lives up to the hype of the acting. It's a film that serves as a frame around a horrific bit of humanity, and I don't think it does an exceptionally good job of really addressing the humanity at work there. It just kind of throws it at you, and then you're done. I really particularly enjoy Meryl Streep and Kevin Kline. This is where I met all three of these characters, with Peter MacNichol too. This is where I sort of feel like I met them. And obviously I'd already seen Fish Called Wanda, and so I felt like I was already buddies with Kevin Kline, but seeing him so young was really a treat. And of course, Meryl Streep, who just, as I was sending you messages last night, I feel like she is a once in a generation talent in terms of a character actress who is able to pull off feats of delivery like Sophie in such an incredible way. She's just mesmerizing throughout.
It's it really is mind-boggling to watch her and think about what she's doing and realize that this is the same woman who was Sarah in French Lieutenant's Woman. Oh, she was in Kramer versus Kramer. Oh, she was in The Deer Hunter. Oh,
Mm-hmm.
she's in all these movies, and it's like she inhabits characters so well that, I mean, she really becomes lost in it, and it just boggles my mind as I watch her that this is the same person that we've been watching this far. She's just so different, and she's 100% in this character.
Yeah, and I think that's really important to look at just how far she came, how quickly, right? I mean, Deer Hunter was only 78. You know, this is 4 years between that first film that we last saw her, and to see her not only just grow in prominence in each film, but then to pull off something where she went and learned Polish, for crying out loud, just so she could get the accent right. And German and German, right? It is transformative. I mean, it is really, it is transformative. It's an amazing, amazing role to watch her deliver this. And so that's why you show up. But then now let's talk about then the things that don't work for you.
I haven't read the book. My understanding of the book is it is similar in structure. The book, the story is really, and this is my biggest problem. Even though I understand why they did it, the story is Stingo's story. Stingo is this young writer who comes up from the South to New York and Brooklyn to try to make it, and ends up in this boarding house where he befriends this Jewish guy, Nathan Landau, and Sophie, this Polish woman who survived the concentration camps. And they're a couple, and he kind of befriends them. And it's his story, and we're looking at everything from his point of view. And I appreciate that. I understand that that's how William Styron, who wrote the novel, chose to go about this. And I think it's an interesting structure. I hear what you're saying about how the bit of the awfulness of humanity that we are confronted with at the ending is kind of thrown at us. What I appreciate about the way the structure gives that to us is that it is painting a very interesting portrait over the course of the film of this woman, of Sophie. And I like the way that that is done. I like how we get these little bits and these lies that they tell themselves and tell others, and how all of that gets peeled back until finally we get this revelation at the end.
Which is the complexity of her, right? That she is, and my understanding is in the book, it is much more of a journey of sort of psychosis for her, where she is, she's the daughter of a sympathizer. He's Polish and he's an enemy of the Reich, but he also was for the extermination of the Jews, and so that puts her in a very complicated place. And so throughout the film, we get this, she doesn't know which line to walk. Is she going to lie and say she's a sympathizer so she can save her family, or is she going to, be true to herself? So I agree with you.
Yeah, and so I really enjoy this character study of Sophie and watching kind of these layers get peeled back until we are left with this raw core of who she is and why she is the way she is. And that leads to kind of her destruction, really, and as she kind of ends up self-destructing, so to speak, with Nathan at the end of the film. But I really don't like Stingo. I have such a problem. I have so little interest in him. All of my interest lies in the story of Nathan and Sophie, and I don't appreciate what the story is doing with him, and I just don't feel it's very interesting. And I get that it's kind of the writer's view, and you're getting the story through his eyes. And like I said, I like the way that structure falls. It's just my interest is not in this character, and it's so frustrating having to spend so much time with him as he is a part of their lives.
That's interesting. I don't have a problem with him. Because I think it's because I really like Peter MacNichol as an actor, and I love seeing him as a kid, parading around on stage. This is, the character of Stingo really is the character of William Styron. I mean, you can't watch William Styron interviewed and hear him talking about, the character of Stingo and not get that this is his story from the boarding house. The boarding house was a place where he got the idea for this book, and he met this woman, this Polish woman, who was sort of transformative in his experience. He didn't write the book until much later, but this was very much his story, and so I think he serves as a narrative tool for me that helps kind of move the story forward. I think, as I reflect on the sort of the first half of the film versus the last half of the film, I really enjoy the first half of the film. You get this sort of Great Gatsby vibe with a lot more agita, I mean, it's you get this sort of three of them, kind of the craziness of Nathan and what are we learning from each other, and he has such a crush on Nathan, and Nathan reads the book and everything's great. And as you learn more about Nathan and how Nathan's life falls apart, Stingo's character becomes more and more sort of precarious in terms of his utility. And I think that's where by the end, when Stingo loses his virginity to Sophie in this final kind of bumbling romantic wash across the screen, which I understand was a lot more explicit in the book. And I too haven't read the book, but I read some segments from the book, and it was really sexual, like not just sexual, but masochistic. It was interesting, kind of the things that they were forced to cut. There was one, for later. Anyway, the deal with Stingo is when he wants to take her out on the farm and marry her and fall in love with her, and I just found at that point, I felt like Stingo. I had lost the thread of Stingo's participation. I was no longer really interested in what he had to say or do. He was not a competent rescuer for her, and it was like he was trying to fill the role of the rescuer, but he wasn't written strong enough.
Well, and yes, and I think that's all of that becomes my biggest problem with Stingo as a character in the film, is I don't feel like there's enough there to make me feel like there's reason for him to really be the person who needs to be in this role. In the book, from my understanding, is, like I said, Stingo is from the South, and it's brought up much more that there has been a lot of awful stuff going on in the South in American history. Mm-hmm. slaveholding, lynchings, all that awful stuff. And there's a more interesting comparison between the Nazis and the slave owners, and that's something that is more addressed in the book, because Stingo is one of the reasons that he's writing this book is because he is dealing with his own family's past and the fact that they had slaves in his past, and that becomes something that is more complex. And I find that would have been a much more interesting comparison, and I would have found much more interesting with Stingo. And then also, Stingo is more, as far as the relationship goes, he's still young, but there is more strength to his character and more drive for him to be an actual, almost competitor with Nathan as far as Sophie's affections. Not so much. It's not vocalized per se, but as he kind of continues coming to her rescue, you do get a better sense in the book that there is this real strong urge that he has to be in her life and woo her away from Nathan and all of that. And that's just completely not there in the movie at all. And he's just in the movie, he's just so sympathetic, almost just like he's just a friend and just wants to take care of her.
Yeah, I think that's really it, isn't it? Because and that's what I'm feeling in the second half of the film, is that it's out of balance because we don't have a strong reason for him to be there beyond jokes that Nathan tells early on in the film, and to relegate the discussion of slavery and lynching and America's history with completely devaluing other people's in a film that is all about the Nazis completely devaluing other peoples around the world. And it does a disservice to the whole parallelism of the narrative, and I really agree with that. I think I think that largely, from what I know of the book, is the ethical foundation of Styron's book is to be able to really think deeply about the humanity, and I feel like that is lost. The other thing that I think it does, if you kind of play it out to its logical next step, is that it gives you more of a sense of where Nathan is, because Nathan is the guy in between both of these kind of ethical narratives, right? He's the Jew who wasn't able to go to war because of his psychiatric condition. He is at home, and he's fascinated by all of these Nazis who are able to go free. And here he meets this fellow from the Deep South who represents the for him the leadership of this mentality of subservience, right? I mean, he's a Southerner, and so we're going to go ahead and play that out and say, he represents what the Nazis represent to Nathan's character, and I think that makes a much more kind of palpable existence for Nathan, a much more interesting character study for Nathan than I think is on display in the film.
100%, I completely agree, and I would happily remove the entire 5-minute subplot with Leslie Lapidus. I mean, I couldn't even figure out what the heck that was doing in the film.
Pointless.
It was just a complete waste of time, and focus on more of this other information that I feel is so much more pertinent to the story. Because
I think that if you go back to Stingo's role as a simple, dumb narrative tool, you're playing short the promise of his character. And as a narrative tool, he goes to meet Leslie Lapidus, right? Because it's almost as if we forgot, or Pakula forgot, or ignored the fact that this really isn't Stingo's story.
Right.
And wanted it to be Stingo's story.
I think that he, and just like Styron, had that identification with the storyteller, the person who's narrating, and they wanted to kind of keep that alive. And, that is kind of a difficult thing, I understand, when you're adapting a novel, is trying to find that thread. But I do think that Pakula really latched on to that narrator as himself. Yep.
Totally agree.
Violent agreement.
Violent agreement. We're in violent agreement. That's right. Okay, so we've talked about Meryl Streep. Do you have any other comments on Meryl Streep? in her performance.
I think that she's stunning in this. She actually really wanted this role so badly that she went to Pakula and actually got down on her knees and basically begged him, saying, "I need to be in this film. I really need to be in this film." And thank God he did, because the other options, Goldie Hawn was one of the options.
That one gave me a chuckle, but Ursula Andress,
Ursula Andress is like, right.
Yeah. Liv Ullmann, who I did not know, or Magdalena Vascharova.
Liv Ullmann, I could have seen do it. She's a fantastic Swedish actress.
Yeah.
That I think could have carried it. And actually, she was on board to do it. She was Pakula's choice. But because he took 2 years to adapt this book into the script, she had another project come up and ended up having to drop out. So I guess we have, but we have that. Thank God that that happened, because we were able to see Meryl Streep do this.
That's right. She's amazing. I watched a bit of an interview with her leading up to this. I also watched clips of her performances on the Ellen DeGeneres show. So I found my way into a rat hole as I was researching. They played the accent game. Where Ellen would put an accent on top of her head, and then Meryl Streep would have to do the accent, and then they'd have to go back and forth guessing. You know that? You know how that game works?
I don't know that game at all.
You're not
should we do it
anymore. All I heard was clicking. I felt like you're like, I'm done. I'm just going to go browse the web.
I'm sorry. Sorry. Are you still on the line here?
Anyhow, so I watched these
Ellen
DeGeneres.
Fascinating. Are you gonna put it in show notes?
Yeah, no, I will not do that. I will not subject anyone else to it. The point is, I watched this thing about it, and she says, she refused to do this in more than one take. She said, I can only do the choice scene. It's like this 5-minute monologue, and then the experience of actually doing it. She said, I can only do this once, and then she never watched it until like 20 years later. She was a guest on another talk show. I think it was Oprah. Yeah, she was on Oprah, and Oprah played the sequence. She said, this is the first time I've ever actually seen it on screen.
It's she said when she read the script, she was only able to read it once, and then she had to put it away, and she knew it was coming. She knew she'd have to do it one day.
Yep.
But she didn't want to even read it again.
Yeah, I wouldn't either. Surprised she even showed up to work that day. It's just a long movie, and then a sequence is just told in title cards.
Right.
It's like a silent film.
Right. Storyboards.
Yeah. Okay, Kevin Kline.
He's brilliant in this film. This is his first film. I mean, he kind of came out of the gate running. Did just an absolutely fantastic job with this film, and clearly is somebody who warrants having a great film career. He's not always my favorite. There are plenty of times when he's in something, and I just feel like there's something about him in the role that doesn't work for me. But that being said, I do generally enjoy seeing him on screen.
Was it Wild Wild West? Is that the film you're thinking about?
No, I can't even think about it, because my wife was like, "What are you talking about?" And I actually had to start going through his stuff. I'm like, "What is it that I didn't like?" And I know there are things out there. I haven't been able to pinpoint it.
I think I've already told you I'm a big fan of the Ice Storm, which was Ang Lee directed this one in 1997. It was fantastic. You can find it on Criterion. But of course, the one that that hits me is Fish Called Wanda, and that's the first thing I ever saw him in, and that's just kind of, he's always close to my heart. So it doesn't really matter what he's in. I'm gonna like it. And it may be a guilty pleasure, but I really do like it. Pirates of Penzance.
I don't think that it's fair to call Fish Called Wanda a guilty pleasure. I think the movie is way too good.
No, and I'm not calling that. I'm saying other films that he is in.
Oh, okay.
That maybe aren't great. Let's say The January Man.
I would say Soap Dish. That would be
Soap Dish. That would be one of those. Pleasure. Yes, but then you see things like I really enjoyed Chaplin. And he was in Chaplin. He was fantastic. with Robert Downey Jr., it was great. And so, he really is. He's kind of a strange sort of hit or miss in terms of critical acclaim, but he is an incredibly talented guy. Sometimes I think the challenge that I have with him on screen is that I feel like he is giving a performance that is better directed at the stage. He is such an incredible stage actor, and I think some of his habits and techniques are stage techniques that come off weird on screen, that just aren't caught by the director or by whatever. It just comes off as a Kevin Klineism, and it just feels like, man, I would love to see that on the Broadway stage or a Broadway stage. But
maybe that's what it is. Maybe that's an interesting way to kind of explain it, because I do feel like there's little isms with him that maybe trip me up sometimes.
Yeah. And it's isms or overacting, right? Slight gesture is too weird or too big or too much. There isn't a lot of subtlety or finesse in a lot of his performances. He's a blunt instrument. But man, when we meet him in this film, the Back to Krakow speech is unreal. I love it. I just love him. As just the thuggishness as he just barrels down the stairs of the house is just amazing. That's our first meeting of Sophie and Nathan, and he just owns it.
After the introduction of the chandelier while there.
Well, I guess that's true.
Love.
Yes.
Yeah. It's a very interesting contrast of the introduction. We see that, and then we see that explosive fight, which is just amazing. And I sometimes marvel that Stingo is able to maintain a friendship with this man after that one moment. Because it's like, if I saw somebody acting that way toward his girlfriend, would I ever like that person? I don't know.
Yeah, right.
Like, Stingo is awfully forgiving of that.
Yeah, he really is. But again, that goes to the toolishness of Stingo's character, right? I mean, it's not necessarily. He's either really incredibly weak as a person, right, as an observer, or nobody really cares that much about what he's doing on screen.
Right.
Say what you're going to say and get out of the way.
Exactly.
All right, but we should talk about Peter MacNichol, a little bit more, the actor.
Sure. I don't think I like him nearly as much as you do. I think he's fine. I've never been overly impressed with him. Dragon Slayer was the film where I was introduced to him. Not a film that I think I liked it a lot more as a youth, and when I watched it older, I really found it kind of a tedious slog. But I really did like him from that film, and I guess he's okay here. I just think I don't think I can blame anything on him. I think the problems I have with Stingo lie in the adaptation and in the directing.
Yeah, I think that's true, and because I think what he does bring, just in terms of his physicality, his physical size, just his sort of smallness on screen, is particularly next to Kevin Kline, but next to Meryl Streep too. I mean, it's that sense of fragility and I'm speaking mostly in the first half of the film, acknowledging that the second half has issues. I think that sense of the fish out of water experience, I think he actually does a pretty good job of it, and I like watching him. I think he's got he brought to me that sort of southern charming uncertainty that I really wanted to see out of that character as we got to know him, and I think he does that pretty well. You're right, Dragon Slayer. I had forgotten mostly because. What was the guy's name who was in The Greatest American Hero?
William Catt.
Okay. So I saw Dragon Slayer, and for like 20 years I thought it was William Catt who was in that movie. And so it was only when I introduced the movie to my kids that I saw that it was actually Peter MacNichol. I was actually very excited, and when they make the shield out of scales, I like that.
Right.
That was good. But really, I sort of wish, talking about Peter MacNichol, that we were actually speaking of the 1989 follow-up to Ghostbusters 2, where he played Dr. Janos Poha. and was one of my favorite characters in the film. That's right. I said it. I outed myself.
Guilty pleasure, I guess.
Why for you talk to me? It was not. It's not great, but he was great in it, and of course, Ally McBeal. He was great.
Right.
You know, he plays weird well.
Yes, he does, and that's all I could think of when I saw him. Was like I wanted him to put his finger on his nose and do the little, stop his nose from making a whistle. Or something.
Yes. He is. He does a ton of TV, video games, ton of animated stuff. Now he's currently playing Simon Sifter on TV's CSI Cyber, which I'm not crazy about.
Yeah, he's. It's an interesting character. I mean, there's interesting character moments like why. I mean, I guess it was 1947, and when you're poor, what do you eat? But cases and cases of Spam. Weird things like that, but it's I don't know. It just I didn't connect with it very much, and I feel like the character could have been written much more strongly to actually make it fit within the story better, so that I really felt there was more of a purpose to the main story, which I mean it is really the main story, because I feel there's so much strength in the backstory of Sophie that this story of this relationship in the 1947 present just isn't there, and I think it's all because of Stingo.
Yep. All right. Stingo's to blame. Stingo eats it. We want to talk about Nestor Almendros.
Yeah, we've talked about him fairly recently.
Yeah.
Kramer
versus Kramer as a cinematographer. What'd you think? How did he characterize this? I think what's interesting about this is one of those films where it's very much could be a stage play. It doesn't move too many places.
No, but I think he does a great job creating these worlds. The present world is lush, vibrant, full of life, full of color. Just deep shadows, a very rich palette. And then when you cut to the flashbacks of the past, it is all sepia. Pakula was saying that they actually had a real hard time creating this kind of, not sepia, that's the wrong word, but just kind of a desaturated look.
Right.
In everything in the past. And they had a really hard time. And I could tell watching it, because sometimes it looks like it's just black and white, and then sometimes you go, oh no, there are hints of color in there, and I guess they had a really hard time kind of creating that look. But I do think it's effective, the different looks between the two. I think that he does a great job balancing the worlds between the flashbacks and between the present. I think he does some fun things in the present. I love the shot of Kevin Kline when after he's read Stingo's book, and he's listening to the orchestra, and he's standing up in the room, and he's kind of just doing his little conducting thing, and you've got all those great reflections around him. Really interesting way to kind of depict Nathan's character as far as this break that he has internally, this kind of paranoid schizophrenia that he's dealing with.
I was trying to figure out as I watched the film, because Nestor, from what I have read, is a much more of a natural light cinematographer. Like, he really wants to shoot using natural available light or room light or as authentic light as he can get. And I think in The Apartment, I think you get a lot of that. And I think he probably wasn't able to do that in the reflection scene just because of the complexity of those reflections and getting them to show up as vibrant as they are. But you can really see it during the choice monologue. They put the camera really far away, and they shot it from outside the house, and shot her through it looks like some sort of a screen or window.
Through a window.
It's very soft. Yeah. And so, to hear Meryl Streep talk about it, she said, I felt completely alone because I was completely alone. Like there was nobody near me doing that. And you get this, it is just gorgeous. I mean, just watching her face move, it looks like it's a bit of a gift of Renaissance art. It's like a painting. But it has that very natural, soft, you can tell, distant lighting.
It almost looks a little washed out, very flat. it works really well for that storytelling bit, and I like that quite a bit. And I think it works really well coming from the shot, very beautifully composed, of her sitting isolated on the kind of the window bench
the
ledge
windowsill,
that they have,
sure.
running along the entire stretch of all those windows. That at night, and you just have that beautiful shot of her sitting there before Stingo comes in and kind of sits on the opposite end. Very beautiful way to kind of portray her isolation and her loneliness before she starts going into that. All of her horror stories.
Yeah, absolutely. In terms of just the overall composition, I think you're right. And, the other one that I forgot is when they go on their little field trip, and there are some really... there are a couple of beautiful field trips. First of all, that giant wide angle of that pans down a couple of times throughout the film. It becomes this interesting sort of narrative bookmark, the visual bookmark of the bridge, of the Brooklyn Bridge.
Right.
And all the cables on the bridge is just wonderful. And the other is when they're in that rotating tube. That I think is at the amusement park, Coney Island. I think that is really, really fun, and it's beautifully backlit and unnatural, and it makes for an interesting, again, visual kind of cue in the film.
Well, and all of that works really well to really kind of help highlight this interesting world in which Nathan and Sophie are living, where they've, in order to kind of get through so much of what's going on in their lives, particularly Sophie, they're creating these facades all the time of who they are, and dressing up in costumes and doing wild, crazy things, and just kind of going over the top with how they're living and experiencing things. In large part for her, in large part to kind of forget everything else. She wants to push everything down, and I think the cinematography does work well to highlight that, along with the costume design and the production design. All of that works really well to kind of highlight all of that.
Yeah. Anybody else high on your list? I'm sure we're going to get to Marvin Hamlisch.
Marvin Hamlisch, yes, indeed. The music in this is really just haunting themes. I mean, the main theme might be a touch overplayed in the film, but it is a really beautiful theme. It's very powerful, haunting. They change it up a few times as far as what instruments play it, but it really is just a powerful, strong piece. And then there's an incredibly haunting flute solo that's played right at the very beginning, and a couple other times. It's kind of represents the daughter's theme, I guess you would call it. I think it's at the beginning, and then it's at the part where she's on the train talking about her daughter ending up getting incinerated, and just horrible stuff. But that haunting flute theme, as if played by a young child, is a very powerful thing to hear throughout.
Oh, it's awful. I mean, great, but awful. It really, and in this one, I'm with you. I think the music, it's possibly overplayed, but by the time you're into it, every time it's a betrayal what happens to that theme, right? Because you're introduced to the theme early on, and then the theme slowly but surely comes to represent something really horrific.
Yeah.
And that only happens very late in the film, and I think that's an unusual trope that they take this beautiful theme and they turn it into something really diabolical, and so I think it works really well. It becomes such a great dramatic instrument for me in the film, and I think if you pay attention to the music as you watch this movie, it becomes a really interesting layer, and it was done really well. This ain't nobody does it better. I think old Marv brought his A game.
Absolutely,
yeah,
it really did.
Yeah. All right. Anybody else high on your list to talk about here?
I don't think so. And we've talked about Pakula before. I think he's a strong director. I think he did a strong job here with this film. I certainly would probably say I'd prefer the Paranoia trilogy that we've discussed before, but I do think this was a very strong. I think it's a strong character study. I think he did a good job of the character study in this film.
I do too, and again, I may be too harsh on it when I call it sort of a frame around a really horrific moment or ideal. There are some really beautiful things going on in this film, and I just find it frustratingly sort of I don't know, slow at times, frustratingly disorganized, and toward the end, and I wish it could live up to its own promise in this sort of ethical discussion around the parallelism of the U.S. and U.S. history and European history. I think that's a huge opportunity that I didn't appreciate the last time I saw this. So I love that bit you brought up there. So
yeah, I just the only other thing is I think there were really interesting elements done in the in all of the stuff in Auschwitz where. There's that beautiful shot of Sophie, beautiful, as she's walking through the mud. She's being led through the mud by a guard. We pass like the I don't know what you call it, just the pen, the jail, where they have all the people locked up who are, I suppose, getting ready for incineration. Right. And their just arms are reaching out. It's just kind of horrific. And we follow her as she goes up to this gate, this wooden door. She goes through, and the camera comes up and over it, and it reveals the I don't know what Hess was. He was kind of like the head guard of Auschwitz, and it's this like lush garden, and there's children playing and frolicking in the garden, and that's just one of those moments in a film that highlights in such a powerful way just how absurd everything was over there at the time, and how people are doing this, and this is how people are living, and it's like they're blind to the realities of the situation that they're actually in. It's a really powerful depiction of that, to see that dichotomy between the two worlds.
That's a good way to put it.
And then the other thing that I thought was really interesting is when Sophie goes to steal the radio, and she's caught by the daughter, by the commandant's daughter, and ends up having this really interesting scene. I think that may be one of my favorite scenes in the film, because this kid initially is like looking at her like she's just dirt. She's just somebody who's caught in the wrong place, and she's going to go tell her mommy, sort of thing. And then it kind of shifts, and it's like, I don't know, it's such an interesting scene, written so well for a child, and I was mesmerized by that scene and mesmerized by this child actress playing this role, because the way that she shifts throughout the scene, going from, I'm going to tell on you, you're going to steal my radio, to helping Sophie after she passes out, and kind of getting her on her feet, and then sitting there and going through her scrapbook album and showing her photos of like what her swimming competition in Dachau and things like that. It's such an interesting look at the world of the Nazis and the mentality of these people who are in it, particularly the children, and how they're just kind of basically brainwashed by their parents, but done so well for a child performer, and written so well for this child. It's just such a powerful scene that I think really hit home very well.
I'm glad you brought that scene up, because I first absolutely agree with you, chapter and verse. I think you're right. And the interesting thing I wanted your reflection on, given the stuff that happens in Germany, the entire film is a fiction, right? It's a complete fiction, and yet there is one character in here. I guess the family, right? Rudolf Hess is the commandant in Auschwitz, and he was a real Nazi, and Emmy Hess, as far as I understand, was his daughter, and they are playing real characters in a fictional film doing fictional things. There is no report that this happened specifically in Germany. There's the experience of Sophie's choice, the choice itself, is attributed to one or two other not terribly I don't know, concrete examples that this actually ever really sort of happened, but it's a horrible thing. And what do you think about having this real life Nazi in a form? Why do you think they did that?
I was wondering about that too, because I had read that as well, and I thought it was so strange that of all the people there ends up being that one person and the family who is pulled from reality and placed into this environment. The only thing that makes sense to me is Styron was just like, well, hey, that person was really there. I will put them there because it's a great way to ground things a little more. But I don't know. It's strange to me. But I mean, I guess in one sense, it's like, okay, by putting the real person who is running Auschwitz there, who Sophie interacts with, it does create a stronger sense of reality for the film because, okay, she was dealing with the real person there. I mean, I guess I can see that. It's like if Hitler walked in. I mean, it's not like you're going to fictionalize Hitler, you know? So
no, I mean, you know, ask Inglourious Bastards.
Yeah, Quentin Tarantino, right?
Yeah.
So
you could ask him or ask the movie if you're kind of slow. Whichever, I don't care. Yeah. It's been a day.
But you know, it's one of those things where I guess, you know, where is the level of who you decide to stop depicting? If it was Goebbels, would you fictionalize him or put the real one in? So I guess it doesn't bother me so much, but it did actually get me thinking back to The Deer Hunter and the conversations we had there about the storytelling and creating fictional stuff in a real
right
situation. And it made me wonder. I mean, it was interesting to read that, you know, this awful choice that Sophie is forced upon her of choosing a child was actually done, and like you said, the examples don't seem that concrete, but it seems like something was there. But it did bring me back to The Deer Hunter and that whole aspect of where do you draw the line when you're fictionalizing versus telling a real story? And I don't know. I mean, I guess it doesn't bother me that Hess was in it, but you know, I don't know.
I guess the question for me is, would the film have been any less powerful if they had anonymized the German?
My wife pointed something out to me, the fact that this film, that it seems so long ago that all of this stuff happened, but this, we were kids in the 80s, and for us, it was 30 years before, 30 to 40 years before, and now, where we are now, our kids are about as old as you know we would have been at the time that all this happened. And if you look at where we are now and where and our lifespan, it's like that would have happened in our lifespan.
Yes.
And so I think having that real character there might have grounded it more for people when they read this book in 1980 or whenever the book came out.
That's a really good point. You should keep her around. That is a great sense of historic. It becomes a sort of pivot point around historical perspective for its target audience at the time. That's great.
Yeah.
All right.
You said that much more succinctly than I did. Thank you.
No, you did fine. We got there.
Phew.
Hey, how did it do?
This film did pretty well for itself. It cost, from what I found, it cost $12 million to make, which in today's dollars is just under $29 million. And then for domestic gross, it ended up making just over $30 million, or adjusted, that's about just over $72 million. So it made its money back. I couldn't find anything about international figures, but it ended up making adjusted about $290,000 per finished minute.
And this is, we should remind folks, this is the film that got Meryl Streep her Best Actress Oscar. Although I think that's the only one for this film.
It's not. Oh, yes, it was the only award for this film. It was
right.
nominated for a few others, but it didn't win. I think Hamlisch was nominated.
Although Meryl Streep won 3 times. My timing was off on that joke. It would have been funnier if you'd said it's not the only one, and no, you'd say, never mind.
That's fine.
I had humor in my head.
I love that you did.
Yeah.
No, it was nominated for Best Adapted Screenplay by Alan Pakula, Best Cinematography by Nestor Almendros, Best Costume Design by Albert Wolski, and Best Original Score by Marvin Hamlisch. And Meryl is the only one who ended up winning. She beat out Julie Andrews for Victor Victoria, Jessica Lange for Francis, Sissy Spacek for Missing, and Deborah Winger for An Officer and a Gentleman.
Deborah Winger.
And I suppose as our Meryl Streep series comes to an end, that we should just mention, this is the 4th nomination that she's had. It is her 2nd win. This is her first win for Best Actress in the leading role. Her last win, as we discussed, was the Best Actress in a supporting role for Kramer versus Kramer. From here, she goes on the very next year to get nominated for Best Actress in Silkwood. In 85, she gets nominated for Best Actress in Out of Africa. In 87, Best Actress for Ironweed. In 88, Best Actress for Evil Angels. In 90, Best Actress for Postcards from the Edge. 95, Best Actress for The Bridges of Madison County. That actually is the longest spell that she's had of not getting nominated. 5 years, from 90 to 95.
Wow.
In 98, she gets nominated for Best Actress in One True Thing. Music of the Heart is nominated Best Actress in 99. Best Actress in 2002, we've talked about Adaptation. Best Actress in 2006, The Devil Wears Prada. Best Actress in Doubt, 2008. Best Actress in 2009, Julie and Julia. Best Actress in 2011's Iron Lady, and that's where she won her 3rd Oscar. Best Actress in 2013, August Osage County, and Best Actress in Into the Woods 2014. So, and actually, Adaptation was a supporting role. Everything else has been a leading role. Into the Woods was a supporting role also. But 19 times she's been nominated, and she's won 3. So, as she said, she's not. She doesn't like to look at it as the actress who's been nominated more than any other actor in the history of the Oscars, but she's the person who's lost the most times.
Is it interesting at all that she ends up, after Goldie Hawn really wants to do this, that she wanted this role, that she ends up doing Death Becomes Her and doesn't get nominated?
And that was in her dry spell.
Yeah, we didn't mention She-Devil either.
No.
But we did. Defending Your Life was in there in that dry spell. So,
yeah, she's a wonderful actress. I think there's so many wonderful films that she's done, whether she's been nominated or not, that are worth discussing. So,
worth disgusting.
Worth discussing.
You're saying. I think we should rank it.
Let's do it.
Head over to flickchart.com/thenextreel and sign up and get your account set up, and then you can go over to our website and you can just line them up. Here are all the films we've done. Rank them. Start at the beginning. Raiders of the Lost Ark. You'll have a great time doing it, and then you can see, when you catch up to us, how this film will do against your list.
All right. Sophie's Choice or Kind Hearts and Coronets. I mean, if I am going to rank, this is hard because I'm going to have to separate myself from Meryl's performance.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, I didn't mention. Premiere Magazine did and they're the end all and be all in film world. But Premiere Magazine did the 100 greatest movie performances of all time. She's ranked as number 3, the 3rd best performance per them. Any idea what
in Forever?
In Forever.
Yeah.
Any idea what 1 and 2 were?
Go ahead and spoil them for me.
Peter O'Toole in Lawrence of Arabia, and Marlon Brando in On the Waterfront.
Yeah, I do like that Lawrence of Arabia. I think you know that I'm a big fan of that film.
I am, yeah. I'm okay with those.
All right. Well, she's right up there. I'm going to go with Kind Hearts and Coronets.
I am too, because I'm not going to rank on Meryl Streep. I have to rank on the film itself, and Kind Hearts and Coronets is the one. Sophie's Choice, or The Adventures of Baron Munchausen.
Wow. I don't mean to belittle the subject matter, but this is a real Sophie's Choice.
Jeez.
I'm going to go with Sophie's Choice on this one.
I am too. Sorry, Terry. Sophie's Choice or La Vie en Rose.
See, now this is an interesting one. Another non-tremendous film with a tremendous performance.
Yes, indeed. I feel like this one warrants ranking based on the actress's performance.
Yeah, all right.
I don't know if that's fair, but I'm going to say Sophie's Choice.
I'm going to say Sophie's Choice too.
Sophie's Choice or Midnight Run? Midnight Run for me.
Midnight Run.
Sophie's Choice or 500 Days of Summer?
500 Days of Summer.
Absolutely. Sophie's Choice or The Deer Hunter? I'm gonna
say
go
The
with
Deer Hunter.
Yeah. Sophie's Choice or The Roaring Twenties?
I'm also going to say The Roaring Twenties.
Yeah, I'm leaning toward Sophie's Choice. I just feel like I'm much more interested in Nathan and Sophie. I'm going to say Sophie's Choice.
All right, I'm going to say Sophie's Choice too. I want to be like Andy.
Sophie's Choice or King's Row? Now here I may say King's Row, actually.
Why?
I found it a more compelling film than The Roaring Twenties. I really enjoyed the characters in that film. I don't know. I'm a little split on it, though.
You know, I am a little split on that too, but boy. Okay, I could go for that. I could definitely I could do that. That was a good story there. That Robert Cummings did a great job, and Ron Reagan, come on.
That's right.
All right.
Okay, that's 124 out of 201. That's where Sophie's Choice lands. Yeah.
All right.
I mean, it seems a little low, but it's not for Meryl's performance. That's for sure.
Truly. But it does fit for where the film lands. Again, it's not overall a tremendous film. We clearly have some problems with it, but it is full of some really wonderful, wonderful characters and incredible performances. Some is not quite... the whole is not the sum of its parts in this case.
That's right. What's your Letterboxd ranking for this one?
I'm going to go 3.
Yeah, I think I'll say 3 on this one as well. So, yeah, good.
All right. Where do we go from here?
We are really shifting gears. We're gonna jump over, do another short little director series with Bong Joon-ho.
Oh, this is good. What are we starting with?
We are starting with his it's a creepy little horror romp called The Host.
I love this movie. I do. I watched it. I feel like I watched it on a dare, although I think I dared myself. It was one of those like late night kind of Netflix things, maybe. And I just pressed play because I saw a tentacle, and I thought, I don't usually do these kinds of things. I'm going to give it a shot. And I really just kind of got a crush on this movie. So I'm very much looking forward to talking about this one next week.
I watched it, and I don't remember liking it very much, so I'm actually really curious to revisit it and see if I like it more this time.
That's funny. Maybe it'll end up your guilty pleasure. Or my guilty pleasure. I'll feel guilty about it, and you'll be right.
Oh, I guess we'll see. Next week.
All right. Well, until then, I got to go to bed.
All right. I'm going to go hang out at Coney Island for a bit.
Mine comes from Kelly C. She gives it 1 star. She said, Sophie's Choice is a bad choice. She says, this movie wasn't about Sophie's Choice. It was about her crazy lover and his obsession. I was disappointed with the movie as it wasn't what I expected it to be. So, I wonder if we saw the same movie. Is my thing. Said not only was it about Sophie's Choice, it should have been called Sophie's Choices. She's making choices everywhere. Who's am I going to kiss tonight? Who am I going to lay into bed with? Who's going to feed me and get me healthy? Every day, which road will I take to get to this place? It's all about Sophie's Choices. Sophie's choosing things all over the place. If this movie is anything, it's truth in advertising. What's yours?
Well, it's interesting because it seems to be a common thread. Brenmar gave it 1 star and said, no, next, please. Her fake accent is annoying. The southern sidekick has almost 0 personality, and the boyfriend's neurosis turned out to be the subject of the story. I bought this on the strength of the reviews and a small preview clip. Lesson learned.
So what are you going to buy it based on next time?
What has the crappiest reviews? That's what I'm going to buy. I don't know. I don't know. Clearly, somebody doesn't appreciate good acting if they think that her accent is fake in any way.
Yes, that's the truth.
Yeah. But it's interesting. Truth. Like, this is another one. Boyfriend's neurosis is the subject of the story.
Yeah. What are you going to do?
Yeah.
All right. Amazon.
It is hard to believe we have been having in-depth conversations about movies since 2011.
You are telling me. Producing this show week after week requires a ton of work behind the scenes. If you'd like to help support our efforts, one easy way is by using our originals page when shopping for books and movies that we've covered.
Just visit thenextreel.com/originals. Your purchases made through our links give us a small commission at no extra cost to you, and allow us to keep having these great discussions.
Season 5 had some great adaptations, like our Meryl Streep Oscar-nominated performances series. We covered adaptations like Kramer vs. Kramer, Sophie's Choice, and The French Lieutenant's Woman.
It's a real Sophie's Choice between those books. You see what I did there?
Yeah. And I don't think it's quite at the level of a real Sophie's Choice.
We also did Snowpiercer for our Bong Joon-ho series, adapted from the French graphic novel Le Transpersonnage. Man, I love that movie.
We had our two-part 1939 series that included adaptations like Gone with the Wind, Ninotchka, The Women, and The Hound of the Baskervilles.
A number of those 1939 movies, like Goodbye, Mr. Chips, also tied into our recent 1940 Academy Award Best Picture nominee series.
Our naughty children horror series had creepy adaptations like The Bad Seed, Village of the Damned, The Innocents, and Children of the Corn.
For our Hayao Miyazaki series, we talked about his take on Lupin III with The Castle of Cagliostro, plus his own The Wind Rises.
Some great listener choice picks too, Viridiana and The Great Escape.
And for our David Mamet Wright series, The Verdict, The Untouchables, and Glengarry Glen Ross.
Plus, Kiss Kiss Bang Bang from our Shane Black series, adapted from Brett Halliday's novel, Bodies Are Where You Find Them.
Dive into the sources for all of these at thenextreel.com/originals.
Every book you buy helps support the show. Check out thenextreel.com/originals today and find your next read.